All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Fortinet session podcast with your host here, Chris Dorn with XenTegra, practice lead of the networking practice. And I have a couple guests joining me. Again, Michael Wier, he joined us last week. So thanks for being here, Michael.
Nice to be back.
Thank you, sir. Dave Wynegar with One Marksman / XenTegra partner is here as well, joining us.
Good morning,
And
Chris.
good morning. Good morning, David. And Brian Haken, our beloved channel manager from Fortinet, is on as well. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for being here with our second installment of this podcast. So, if you're just hopping in for the first time and kind of skip the overview one that we did the other week, we're discussing all things Fortinet in this series, and we're keeping it kind of at a high level as we're entering into this area of technology with our podcast, our different podcast series. And if you've been to the XenTegra.com website and looked at any of the different podcasts that we offer, we have quite a few different vendors that we chat about, the ones that we partner with very well and that we've selected to work with because of their leading expertise in the technologies that they're focused in. So, with the first one that we did last week or 2 weeks ago, Michael was on and we discussed the fabric, the overview of the fabric, how it all kind of ties together at a high level. And then as we progress down the line of all those different components, we want to spend a little bit of time kind of breaking them apart a little bit and looking at them from more of a high level, kind of getting into this series. Told the guys a few minutes ago that, I want to kind of explain it to somebody who's brand new to the Fortinet technologies, but then as we progress down the stack to kind of hone in a little more on the technical side. But at this level in this session, we'll look at the FortiGates themselves. If you don't know, the FortiGate is the firewall product line, Next Gen Firewall product line that there is pretty much a model for every use case, including IT and OT applications. And we picked up on one of the blogs that was written by Nirav Shah and Mohammed Abid, and they went through here and kind of looked at the Gartner 2022 critical capabilities of network firewalls, and the report that came out of that kind of broke out the leading vendors in the different areas. And I knew Fortinet would be in some of them, but I was not aware that they would be as high as they are, and it's really super impressive. This article that we're taking a look at here breaks it apart into the enterprise data center use cases, the distributed enterprise use case, which that'll include some of the SD-WAN reasoning, SMB use case, and then the fourth one was the public cloud use cases. So with that, I just want to, and they led 3 out of those 4 and only had second place in the one that they didn't lead in. So it's showing that Fortinet really has their act together here, and they're delivering a superior product to some of the other vendors maybe in that stance that are taking those similar approaches to kind of deliver it. But the overall idea of the firewall itself and the protection that it provides is pretty standard across all those different vendors. But then, I want to chat about maybe a little bit about how it plays into the fabric itself, how it controls the rest of the components or a lot of the aspects of the fabric that are put into place there. And there's a ton of different models here. We're selling some that are on the smaller end with the FortiGate 40 series, which would be like your desktop size, home capable SD-WAN enabled product with that, but that same operating system can scale up to the carrier grade full chassis with the modular components that we put into play there. So with all those different pieces in there, wanted to chat about a little bit about how that operating system, it's going to be pretty much the same across the board, regardless of the sizing that we're looking at. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. I mean, it really is feature parity all the way from bottom to top. There's not like a SMB OS and an enterprise OS and a carrier OS or anything along those lines.
So saying, go ahead.
Yeah, that's Chris, Dave Wynegar. The great thing I saw about the fabric is the single pane of glass and being able to manage multiple types of devices under one common interface. So if you're a small business, a large business, or somewhere in between, you get access to the same software. You get the same visibility features that everyone has from that unified code that Fortinet puts out. So you don't have to go and figure out what code, what train, what version. You put out the platform and you get all the features. So it's really nice to have that uniformity across the systems, especially when managing complexities in the network. So they've really done a good job, I think, bringing that together and making it simple for the end users to deploy and manage.
Yeah, and that'll extend into the fabric even deeper, and we'll chat about them in some other podcasts as well. But this is kind of I look at it as like the pinnacle of the pyramid, kind of so to speak, and everything else under that pyramid involves like your switches and your APs and other components of the fabric, and the firewall itself is kind of like the pinnacle control plane for that. It can be managed by the management software, the FortiManager software on-prem or in the cloud, but at the same time, it's like that for that node and that location where it's deployed, it's kind of like it's the boss. It's aware of a lot of what's happening in there using that FortiLink protocol that we chatted about a little bit last week. But a lot of responsibility goes into that firewall. Thus, a lot of reasoning for probably deploying in a high availability setup. But it's pretty impressive here, which has probably helped bump them up pretty far in the in these use cases and these rankings that we're seeing in these Gartner reports.
Yeah, Chris, what I find impressive about it is a lot of the visibility that the firewall gives you into your environment. It's that deep visibility into the environment along with the centralized management that allows you to have that power of both visibility, automation, and being able to enforce the security policies in real time. So today, as you know, many of the threats are coming in are zero-day threats, and you really have to start thinking about what journey you're going to bring on to go into a zero threat environment. And taking that journey to get there is a good way to start with Fortinet and placing the firewalls as its centralized product to work around. So you're right. I mean, it provides not only those capabilities, but it is a next generation firewall and give you all the layers all the way up to layer 7 for access into applications, which, as you know, is very important nowadays with the amount of complex threats coming in.
Yeah, and like I think to play off what you just said there, it's one of the pieces you can build off of, and that through a lot of discussions we've had with some of our clients, it's like they got a hodgepodge of different technology vendors in their organization. They're spread really thin. They're probably working 12 plus hours a day anymore. Kind of the result of the work from home COVID stuff that we all experienced, but it's like, if we can consolidate the effort that it takes to manage the environment, it's like this fabric is just unbelievable. And it, like you're pointing out there, it's like if you're up for a firewall replacement, or you got a new site, or something like XenTegra had with our new data center components that we are rolling out, putting that firewall into place and then building some of the other stuff later, is really a nice avenue that SMBs especially can take advantage of. If there's budget constraints or anything, it's like, we tackle the firewall piece now, and then plan for the future with the switching and the access points, and then some of the additional accompanying components into the environment as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just a case of you'll eventually have to rip and replace. Fortinet's got about 200 other vendors they partner with some kind of security integration. So while you're in that bridge state of going from your current solution to Fortinet, you still have generally visibility and maybe API connections or other intelligence going across your environment.
Yeah, it's something else. And I think one of the big differentiators too, and I've done this one, and I've done apples to apples comparisons against some of the other vendors that were, kind of in that same area of especially depending on the business size. But there's this thing inside of the FortiGates called the SPU. And I'd like to chat about that a little bit because I think that's a big differentiator. And for folks that aren't aware, when you have the Next Gen Firewalls, you're basically enabling services on those boxes that we didn't have on the staple packet inspection firewalls, where these Next Gen capabilities they're going to eat up more processing. So if you're in a situation with a certain, or most vendors, where the firewalls themselves might have maybe a hyper-threaded CPU in it to some degree, but we're still sharing all the cycles on that CPU. A lot of if not all, the FortiGates themselves have the SPU chips in there to help offload that processing to another component. So by flipping that switch for IPS or any of the other next-gen capabilities, we're not necessarily hindering the CPUs too greatly. Either you guys could chat about that a little bit.
I can give a few details on that. So, Fortinet, in pursuit of making better firewalls, all the chips doing the routing and the security work inside of FortiGate are purpose-built, Fortinet-designed ASICs. They're not an off-the-shelf, I won't say the names of the other brands. They're not just an off-the-shelf component. They're something that was built for this specific purpose. So, like you said, if you enable, say, full SSL decryption, one of the ASICs in there, or some reserve processing power on a SOC in there, is set just for that. So those policies on which you're doing the SSL decryption, if you have other routing going on, the SSL decryption does not affect that other routing speed, because they're running on two separate chips, two different sets of load. And then if you go to the F-series FortiGates, then you're at a point where there's a third ASIC in there that is primarily dedicated to SD-WAN routing, so advanced application layer routing and that sort of thing. So you're not losing any speed for enabling all of these things at once.
Nice. And I think you stated last time, Michael, that the version 7 was really directed toward the operating system was really directed towards the SD-WAN capabilities, or was that in the 6 series?
So the 6.4 introduced a lot of SD-WAN capabilities. The 7.0 series introduces a lot of device profiling and general zero trust network access capabilities to that. And they're both still actively in support too. It's not as though when you go to a new version, the old version just suddenly disappears.
Gotcha. But if we were to come in as a brand new shopper to these kind of technologies on the FortiGate series, you see some numbers really kind of go up in the capabilities, and I guess we can attribute a lot of that to those additional ASIC chips that are present in that newer generation model.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth stating too, version 7.0 doesn't lose any of the SD-WAN features that you have in 6. It's just an upgrade. But yeah, I mean, even if you look back at previous generation FortiGates like the E series or even the D series, all the way as far as our heritage goes, we've always made our own stuff, which also helps, of course, with the big word of the supply chain issues and that sort of thing. But what you're getting is a purpose-built device.
Yeah, we're definitely feeling the crunch from the supply chain issues right now. That's just across the board, so that there's no one vendor that's not affected by this. It's pretty much the name of the game from everybody right now. But if I recall, though, I believe that a lot of these FortiGates, if not all of them, are they U.S. built, or they're onshore here, or assembled here, at least from what I believe.
So they're all designed in the U.S. They're generally built in either Taiwan or the U.S. And for some FortiGates, there's actually differentiated SKUs for which point of origin you want to come from. And the majority of Fortinet's servers are maintained in either the United States or Canada for those that have compliance issues and that sort of thing. And you can even set your FortiGate to only communicate with FortiGuard servers in the U.S. if you're in a governmental situation or something else where that's required.
I was not aware of the Taiwan component there. So, I mean, that's just showing, again, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes down to the compliance requirements you might have to meet. Wow, that's pretty interesting and very impressive for sure. So we're looking at, kind of scrolling through the data sheet here. I'm looking at, the throughput is a big factor there. Kind of scale and zone in on the size model that you might have. And I've had some of those discussions in the past, and some of it comes back to the capabilities that they might want to turn on. A lot of it has to do with the number of users they might have in an organization. But I've typically, and I think some of the biggest ones that coming from the XenTegra side that we've even worked with at all, is like about the 1100 series and the 1800 series, which Dave's been helping out a ton with getting that into place. But in a lot of the larger enterprises, is it like maybe around the 3000 series, 4000? Where do you guys kind of see a lot of sweet spot for like your larger enterprises in some of those models I don't have experience with at this point?
So it's interesting. Fortinet's actually 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 from your SMB small enterprise to your mid to large enterprise and your extra large service provider enterprise. If I had to choose where we're seeing frequent notches, I would say the 2200E is awful popular because it gets 11 gigs, all services, full explicit proxy, SSL decryption and re-encryption, all that kind of thing. So for those who have a 10 gig WAN going in, which is becoming more and more frequent these days, the 2200 is what's going to clear that hurdle for you. The 2600 has also been very popular because it has 100 gig ports in it for those that have extremely high throughput servers or something along those lines where they need to have 100 gig ports. That's a firewall that has those 100 gig ports for them. And then, of course, for those that really need big, the 6500F series has a full 100 gigabits per second capable, and it's not a chassis, it's a fixed unit, just a few RUs. But yeah, it gets 100 gigabits per second, all services.
Yeah, see up the 6500F, it's got the interfaces clearly listed there, but when you hop into that 7000 series, it's varied, and I guess that depends on the components that you place into the chassis. So interesting.
I will say the 7121 series there, properly equipped, you can get over 500 gigabits per second throughput on that, and it also has a 400 gig port on it, so QSFP-DD plus.
And still work. That's amazing. Yeah, those are just such big numbers. You come over like 20 years in the industry, and it's like we're literally flying at the speed of light with this. And we're still taking advantage even from the FG40 series all the way to the 7121Fs. We got the SPUs in there to make all that difference in the world, so there's more bang for your buck.
Oh yeah, it's worth noting a lot of enterprise features drift down too. So like even the 80 series, which is just a desktop device, you can get it with a bypass port. You can get it with dual power supplies. I don't know of any other vendors that offer dual PSUs in a desktop unit.
No, definitely not. I have a 61 or a 60 series floating around somewhere we sent out for a proof of concept. So to any of our listeners that want to take a stab at it, we got a couple of the 60Fs and a couple of the VMs that we can help with the proof of concepts as well. So it seems just having a little bit of hardware floating around really helps solidify folks, and especially if they're new to Fortinet, to see it with their own eyes and kind of take a test drive on that. So definitely, if you're interested in that, let us know. Well, I'll hop back over here, maybe look at the components here in this blog that we've been circling around here. So enterprise data center use case, leading, not even super close, but, the second vendor here is pretty well known. They don't necessarily have end-to-end fabric like Fortinet does, but they've done pretty well in the firewall area over the years. And then I was surprised to see a couple of these other ones that I thought would be a little bit higher, but just aren't quite making the mark to get up to the point where Fortinet is in the enterprise data center area. And then we chatted about the SD-WAN component for that distributed enterprise use case again, and Fortinet with the secure SD-WAN, they're leading the pack there. They came in pretty close, second place with one of the other big competitors with Palo out here, which they're always kind of poking their head around in this area as well. They're pretty famous as well, but I was really, really impressed to see Fortinet kind of beating them out in the distributed enterprise use case. I thought that was pretty impressive. And then that
And that,
SMB. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say it's worth noting too that our SD-WAN is in-house developed, baked into the OS, whereas the second place brand there is largely functioning off components they got from the acquisition of another company.
Oh yeah, they definitely did. Well, then we kind of look down at the third one with the SMB use case, and that's where again I kind of when I walk into an organization and we're just chatting about it, it's kind of open book. They're like, well, why do you like Fortinet so much? And I just kind of preach, you get in that top level enterprise quality operating system and technologies here, and from what I can tell and what I've experienced firsthand, it's super cost effective. So you're not being blown out of the water to get into the Fortinet stack and start protecting your organization and moving towards that more of a hands-off approach for it to take care of itself, since a lot of this automation inside of these appliances is just either a subscription of some sort, or you're building out some of those other components, or you're possibly even looking to somebody like XenTegra to leverage our managed service provider offerings that we can help to complement your Fortinet journey. But yeah, it's up there again. You beat out that second place firewall company that we were chatting about a few moments ago, which is still pretty, and they're very popular. But I like seeing that we're moving up and placing first in a couple of these different areas. I think one of the places though that we're doing a decent amount of work in, and I'm seeing a lot of folks really kind of spin up, especially when these are new businesses that folks are standing up and kind of going to market with. I see like in the public cloud use cases, Fortinet got second place in that Gartner report there. And that's just kind of showing the flexibility of the technology overall. It's like we're great in the data center, we're great in the branch offices and connecting, and we're also great in the public clouds. So there really isn't an area where the FortiGate itself doesn't fit inside of your IT or OT models that you have here. And why it matters, is that acceleration that people are having to the cloud adoption and addressing those growing requirements for the agility, the scalability, and the digital transformation is just terribly important. So, having the ability to be flexible in the deployment options is just incredibly important at this point. So I could see why and how Fortinet made such a stance here with the FortiGates, and we're able to kind of basically conquer this rating scale in these 4 different areas here.
I'll throw in there too. Obviously being one of the Fortinet guys, I have a very extensive lab beyond what the average person would probably have. Probably beating XenTegra too, but that's because infinite pockets. But I have a FortiGate in AWS, as well as my local one at my house, as well as one at my co-tam's house, and deployed all over. And one of the things that I like is that I can still share security information and fabric information with the FortiGate and AWS is, the same as I can across all of my other devices. So like my FortiGate, FortiWeb, and FortiGate VM, FortiWeb, and FortiAnalyzer in AWS, all of them are talking to my home FortiGate and Garrett's home FortiGate, sharing information all the time. There's no difference in that security operation just because it's in AWS or anything like that.
And I brought up an idea popped in my head while you were chatting about that, but we kind of kicked off a AWS podcast series as well. And I'm like, maybe we should have a collaboration here. Maybe we could talk about how we could kind of have those things synced up in the platform that we're deploying FortiGates on, and how FortiGate can help secure that platform in AWS. So very cool.
Yeah, Chris, one other thing to mention on the FortiGate in the cloud, they have a FortiCASB, which is the cloud access security broker. Just because you're in the cloud doesn't mean you're secure. So a lot of times customers don't realize the problems that come along with the cloud and the lack of security that it could have if not set up properly. So with that extended fabric, you're able to protect all of your threat vectors, whether they're local to your network or remote to your private cloud or a public cloud. The fabric just extends all the way through. And what we're finding is customers who have been either hit with a ransomware attack or understand what a phishing attack is like, this deployment of the FortiGate with the extended fabric allows their mail systems, the URL filtering, their EDR and sandboxing of data, so that it's not getting out there in the wild to all your users. And if something's found, it's immediately locked in and quarantined. I mean, that's a huge differentiator, I think, when it comes to having a system that when you deploy it, you know it's going to work, and you don't have to worry about things like ransomware and phishing attacks, which right now is one of the hottest things and growing for 2022 in the cybersecurity area.
Yeah, Dave. I mean, completely. And to play off that a little bit, it's kind of showing, and what's listed here on the article we're going over for our listeners here is that kind of in the conclusion area of the blog post that was put up at and this is at the bottom here. It's that Fortinet security fabric components are being fully integrated, kind of reinforcing that they have pretty much everything that you might need or want, or in the kind of future proofing as well. But there's also open APIs to extend that interoperability with like 450 plus different partners. So it's not, Fortinet's clearly a team player as well. So just kind of want to point that out there, that they're willing to work with some of the different technology vendors just to keep everything flowing and working as it should be, regardless if you moved everything over to Fortinet or you're still on that journey. So very flexible.
It's worth noting too that Fortinet is an open operating system, not open source or anything, but you can make API, even if we don't have an API for one of those 450 vendors, you can still make custom APIs to connect to the FortiGate, including REST APIs. Basically anything you can make in JSON. And there's this thing called the Fortinet Developers Network, of which I'm a member, of course, that gives you code snippets and API snippets that help you build out these custom things for your organization. So if you have a custom application, you can still link it to the FortiGate and get security information shared across industry standard protocols back and forth.
Wow. So, and this is something I've been wondering too, and since I don't have a lot of hands-on with the deployment yet, is what's the operating system built off of? Is it like a free BSD kernel, or are you aware of maybe where it came up from?
So there is deep inside it a Linux kernel. I couldn't tell you which one.
Okay.
But there's generally the Linux kernel there only runs the OS itself. Pretty much everything layered on top of it is custom.
Okay, gotcha. And we see that's pretty common across different technologies from other vendors as well. But that's good to know.
Yeah, Chris, another good point to bring up with the APIs is its ability to deploy a purpose-built edge to cloud network. So when you're talking about transformation and you want to send data from the edge of your network into the cloud, sometimes you'll have control systems or HVAC systems, and the data and the telemetry of those systems are being hacked. So this allows interoperability and being able to normalize some of the data flows from your edge of your building into your central database cloud. So Fortinet has built in many APIs to allow with that through, like you mentioned, REST APIs or message queuing, and be able to have those transactional transmissions without any repudiation of data or attacks of man in the middle.
Nice.
You can actually, just pile on that one more time, inside of FortiGate, with or without APIs, you can actually automate any OS trackable variable to any CLI or TCL trackable command. So you can customize pretty much anything you want for the FortiGate to do it for you at the speed of a machine instead of the speed of a human mind.
Wow. I just like the simplicity of the deployment. But wow, I mean, there's so much more under this. And guys, thanks a lot for being here, because hopefully our users are getting as much out of this as I am. I'm by far no expert in this area, but just fallen in love with the whole idea of the fabric soup to nuts. And I know it's been around for a while, with 2000 when the company was started. So it's not the new kid on the block, but it's it's kind of new to me as we're breaking out from what XenTegra was traditionally known for as we explore these other technologies from somebody like Fortinet. Just exquisite work that's been done here. With that, I don't want to keep you guys wrapped up all day. I think we've covered some very good points, especially touching on the article here. And is there anything else maybe you want to bring up about the FortiGates that we haven't covered? Everybody,
that's a broad question. That's a very broad question.
Is it? It was kind of loaded. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm sure we'll get to all the good stuff as we go through these.
Oh, awesome. Well, Michael, Brian, and Dave, I super appreciate you guys being here. Again, we're still kind of putting our toe in the water. I feel like I got 2 toes in the water at this point, but we'll keep progressing with this stack and kind of expand upon it as we move down the line. I think next time we'll maybe target the switches and the access points. I think we might be able to lump those 2 together, and then because that kind of plays off of the discussion that we just had as we move through the fabric a little bit. And then after that, again, maybe we'll look at the analyzer and manager together in the next couple weeks. So, gentlemen, I super appreciate your time being here today. Again, I got a lot out of that, just our 40-minute conversation here about a little bit more of the fabric and the inner workings of the FortiGate product line. So join us again next time. I appreciate y'all being a part of this, and we'll see you soon. Y'all stay safe and take care.
Cheers, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for the time.